Welcome back to another episode of NFL News on the Boom Bust channel. I'm your host, Terry, and today, let's talk real quick about the 49ers. Two things I wanted to talk about that involve the 49ers. Number one, we'll start the Super Bowl. I know I'm a little late to it, but was out of town. The discourse after the Super Bowl has been insane. I watched that game and I wasn't able to fully get everything. Yeah. Anyway, but I rewatched it afterwards because I knew it was a great game and I just wanted to really appreciate it. So went back and was able to go play by play, and it was even better than it was live. And so I'm just like, man, coming off of Sunday, now I'm just like, this game was like an amazing Super Bowl. This was absolutely crazy. I can't believe it, lived up to that hype. And then to hear the discourse afterwards was so ridiculous. It was disappointing. I mean, I can't say it's surprising because, you in those scary hours, as they say, where the media doesn't have much to talk about. Football's over, and you'll have some off season stuff, but the sports media world is coming to a grinding halt, and so we got to fill up time, just like the week leading up to the Super Bowl. Repeated all the time, repeated topics over and over again, and stuff that just really didn't matter. And so now you get that after the Super Bowl. That's fair. But the discourse was so crazy to me because it was all about, like, not only playing hindsight with the 49ers, but the talk was really almost as if like the 49ers got blown out or something. The discussion was like the Chiefs was in another stratosphere, and I just don't understand it. Like, Pat Mahomes, if you want to take the moment and magnify it, yes, it was Jordan-esque. It felt, this walk-off. It just felt like a wow moment. But we're not going to excuse the rest of the game and act like, he was dominating. We're not going to, excuse everything the 49ers did. Like, there was less than, 30 seconds on the clock when they scored that touchdown. So you went to the very end of an overtime in the Super Bowl, and people are talking like the 49ers were just trash, and I just don't understand it. So you get Purdy being trashed, and then you get Kyle Shanahan being trashed. And what I really, besides the overall narrative, which I think is crazy, the one thing that really blew my mind, well, two things, is the overtime decision. People are going to play Monday morning quarterback. Again, they're going to do the hindsight. That's what sports media does. But I don't know. To me, it's just one thing to make general statements like, oh, you didn't play well, and you going into this game, you knew you should have played well, or even more specific things like, well, you should have ran the ball on that. Like, it's, whatever. But to sit here and try to blame the loss on him taking the ball in overtime and it being a mistake is insane. Like, the only reaction to that is, I understand what he's saying. You just got to execute better. I agree with him. I don't agree with him. But either way you execute, it don't matter. That's it. The way people are talking so definitively is insane to me. It was worse than when they were talking about Dan Campbell in the fourth downs. Like, with the fourth downs, first of all, you can't combine them, because if you do something different on one fourth down, you probably don't make it to the second one. It's a whole different scenario at that point. So that's fine. You want to talk about that. Either way, they were in position to win, even going for those on fourth down. And so that's one debate. This is like, there is no debate here. If you go down and score and they get the ball back, you got to play defense. If you go down and you only get 3 like they did, you got to play defense. If you kick it off to them first, guess what? You have to play defense. This, like, the rules are the rules. Everybody gets a turn. So there is no discussion other than, okay, we might want to give them the first crack, see what we up against. That does not guarantee you anything. The Chiefs didn't win because they knew they had to score a touchdown. And so to me, this is where we cross the gaslighting line, where I think I'm in the twilight zone. And I'm like, what are these people talking so strongly and loudly about that I don't know? As if it was guaranteed, okay, well, if we take the ball first, we're going to lose Pat Mahomes. Well, then if it was that, he wouldn't took the ball. It's so stupid to me that there is no discussion, logical discussion about which way to go for that. It just isn't. You have to execute on the field no matter what. And so to sit here and try to make it seem like it's that's the reason is silly to me. And you can believe them or not, hindsight wise, but Pat Mahomes said if they scored a touchdown and kicked the extra point, we were gonna go for 2. And so either way, they were planning to go for the win. Not because you took the ball, they were planning to go for the win, period. Guess what? Because you play to win the game. And so there's no genius level analysis here. There's no way to sit here and try to first of all, I hate the fact that sports media does that anyway. But in this situation, there's zero reason for you to try to stand here as some smart person in the room. Well, I would have just kicked the ball to Pat Mahomes. So what? That don't guarantee you anything. And so for people to talk about it as if okay, you're down 17 with a minute left and you kick the field goal. Yeah, there's no winning in that scenario. That wasn't this. This wasn't some blunder. That's the decision he wanted to go. Either way, the team's got to play. So to hear that for days on end was just mind numbing. And I know we overuse phrases a lot, and this is why I don't like overusing it, because there are special occasions where these phrases really do it justice. And this is one of those cases. That was mind numbing. I felt like I lost brain cells listening to that discussion. Second thing, this big talk about the players didn't know the overtime rules. 2 things. Number 1, McCole Hartman didn't know the overtime rules. He literally said Pat Mahomes had to tell him they won the game because he didn't know the rules. Now, did anybody say Andy Reid should be fired? Did anybody say anything about the Chiefs? No, they laugh it off. Ha ha ha, so funny. But the 49ers turned around and said they didn't know the overtime rules. Now, it's an abomination by Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan needs to be fired. What are you talking about? First of all, they said that they didn't know that the Chiefs were going to get the ball back, essentially, which is not even true. It had no bearing on the situation because the new overtime rules gives the other team the chance to get the ball. Whether you score a touchdown or not. The regular overtime rules is that if you score a touchdown, you win. If you kick 3, the other team gets to go. And that's been in for a while. They scored a field goal. Whether it was playoffs or regular season, the Chiefs were getting the ball back. So they didn't know, the rules had nothing to do with this scenario. And so it blows my mind that this is even a discussion. It doesn't matter in this scenario. It didn't come into play at all. And so if you want to play the what if, then again you got to play it with the Chiefs. Like I don't understand why this is a big discussion, and for people to take it to firing and calling people out, I think it's just a way to fill time on air because this can't be a real discussion in my mind. All right. Next thing I want to talk about. Steve Wilks, root to the good bros. He got fired, and it does not make me happy to say that. Obviously, that's frat, and I think he even outside that, I just think he deserves a good opportunity. But this wasn't a fit for him. I wasn't shocked by this. There's a lot of people again blowing this up, saying he was scapegoated. Now, if you listen to this channel, you pay attention, you know I'm the first one to complain about coaches being scapegoated. This is not that situation. I've been saying all year that the 49ers defense has not been the same as previous years. And so if you actually watch the games, you would see they've been undisciplined all year. They've been busting coverages all year, unlike how they usually are. And yes, Ufanga got hurt. You could point to that as a blow, 100%. But even when he was still playing, the team wasn't the same. And they definitely weren't the same in on the D line area, which is of course why they got I want to say Randy Gregory got let go in the middle season. They got him. They went and got Chase Young. They just were not performing the same. And so some people will look at certain numbers and say, "Whoa, they were better than last year." No, they weren't. And again, when you want to call someone a top rated defense and whatever, it depends on what stats you're looking at. Again, if you listen to this channel, I track my own stats, the ones that I think are important metrics. And the 49ers all year, which I've been mentioning, they don't rank where you would think they would rank in a lot of these things. I believe in total first downs, they were right in the middle of the league. And then when you get to efficiency, total efficiency, I think they were around 19. And then if you look at run efficiency, they were second to last in the league. Run efficiency, first downs. And pass efficiency, they were like number 3. And that happens sometimes where a team is, so if you think about like first downs given up or yards given up, a team can be really good against the pass because teams are too busy running on them, or vice versa. But when it comes to efficiency, that doesn't factor in because it's purely a percentage of how well you're doing in those situations. So even though they were really good, they were great, elite against the pass, they were bottom of the league against the run. And then third downs given up, they were pretty high up in the league or not third down giving up, on third down conversions. They were like higher than you would expect them to be. So if you look across the stats that I track, I think they were top 10 in sacks. That helps. Obviously the takeaways and all that kind of covers it up. But when you really look at the nitty gritty, they were not performing at all like a 49ers defense. And I can say that because I tracked this last year. So now I have legit data to put up against it, and it's nowhere near the same. And so I've been saying all year, no, this defense is not there. And so you got to understand what they're saying. like what they're actually saying, which again, people can, kind of double speak and sugarcoat it. So I get it. People might be skeptical, but I take Shanahan at what he said. They talked, they agreed that he just wasn't a fit. And so people trying to say, oh, they're acting like he can't coach or they're trying to blame him for the Super Bowl. No, they said he doesn't fit. Now look, you had the thing which I think was stupid. And to be honest, it means something else that I'm not trying to get into, but a lot of people made a big thing about him being in the booth versus being on the sideline. And I do think, again, the way people tried to spin it was stupid. But ultimately, it does show that there was a disconnect. There's a disconnect, and especially you look at the early part of the season, the first quarter, they were not playing well, not nowhere near how they usually are. And I think Bosa was hurt a little bit earlier in the year, but either way, they weren't doing what they usually do. And so you had to have this change that was kind of a shakeup. And they started to play better, whatever, but still, if you look at it and you watch the film, they were not disciplined. They were not the same. And what makes it even tougher for people, I think, is that the defense played lights out in the Super Bowl. This, out of all postseason, bumped the numbers. Like, I talked about it. I talked about the Lions game, but I guess if I would have put up film, I think people wouldn't have been shocked by what happened today because they were so undisciplined against the Lions. And really, the Lions took what the Packers were doing to them the week before. And so it was all about discipline. And as I said after that game, I was like, that was what they did. They attacked their discipline by going misdirection, their zone, and a lot of perimeter stuff. And they were head and shoulders better against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs gave them a much tougher task. And so they played lights out. But as I also said in community the other day after I watched the film again, this was a game where you had to be almost flawless. You had to be elite. And they were great. They were lights out. They were amazing. They weren't elite. And both defenses really had to be because those handful of mistakes, along with other things like turnovers, that cost them the game. The last play of the game is a perfect example of that. That right there, you out of position. Now it's a tough play to defend, but you out of position. And if you look at the Ravens, if you look at the Chiefs, and you looked at 49ers in the Super Bowl, it's what I say all year. The toughest defenses are the ones where everybody's where they're supposed to be all the time. Because what happens is you make that first tackle or at least stop the progress and you limit the extra yards, you limit the blown coverages, and that's what elite defenses do. And the 49ers weren't doing that until the Super Bowl. But then there were certain plays, again, really you could count on one hand the number of times that they really were out of position. But that in that game, in any other game, that'd be a dominant performance. But in that game, that was all it took. I say all that to say, great job, Steve Wilks. Great job, 49ers defense in the Super Bowl. Yes, but we are not going to erase the rest of what we saw this year. It's not surprising. So now you might want to think, okay, well, he's shown he's on his way. But look, there's a reason, much like Seattle, there's a reason when you have a great defense and the first guy leaves and then the next coordinator does well and he leaves and it's a rotating door. There's a reason why it keeps going. It's because you obviously have the great talent. Now you plug in somebody that can pick up the same system and keep it going. Steve Wilks was not a handoff, like D'Amico Ryans was. This was an outsider being brought in, and most people would think you get a talented veteran coordinator come in with all this talent, he could pick it up. No, I mean yes, it's possible, but a lot of times coordinators know what they know and do what they want to do, and you can adapt it much like an offensive coordinator trying to adapt to a quarterback. And it doesn't always go well because they're good at what they do. And you can tell whatever they were doing this year wasn't the same. Numbers wise, look at the film wise, out of position, especially in the secondary. But then on top of that, the way they attacked wasn't even the same. Is just because you rush four people and you say, okay, they rushed four people 10 times this game last year, they rushed four people 10 times this game this year. It's the same. No, how you rush is different. And so I just think overall preparation and overall schematically, they were off this year. So this wasn't a shock to me. And I think the narrative that they scapegoated him needs to be pushed back against. So that's what I'm doing. So that's it for me. Go down to the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.